Hello, everyone. This is CB Smallwood, and welcome to Mental Junk Food, where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. And today we're talking about professional wrestling. In particular, Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are coming back to the WWE as executive directors. Before I get started on this news headline, I want to give credit to where credit is due. E-Wrestling News is where I got the information for this. And there's also another article I'm going to cite here in just a little bit. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, apparently, according to Sports Illustrated, Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, returning to the WWE main roster television on a weekly basis. Both men have been named executive directors, with Paul Heyman being assigned to Monday Night Raw and Eric Bischoff being assigned to SmackDown Live. Now, to get further analysis on this, also another article from E-Wrestling News. They cited their sources from PWI Insider. So reportedly, WWE has been trying to court Heyman for a role with WWE Creative as far back as February of this year, 2019. And it's been reported and widely known that Heyman had been working with individual talent such as Ronda Rousey and Alex Bliss. Or Alexa Bliss, not Alex Bliss. Eric Bischoff's deal, on the other hand, a little different, as it came together within the last few weeks, as Eric was working pre-production on Netflix with a Hulk Hogan biopic. Reportedly, he will be working directly with Fox as he builds their relationship with the network ahead of Fox's debut. It's also being reported that WWE included him in this role because of his previous work in collaborating with Turner and Spike in other networks and in building past TV series, which heavily factored into WWE's decision to hire him for this role. All right. Now, here we're going to offer a little bit of perspective. I promise not to take too much of your time because, I get bored watching long videos just like you do. But this is really interesting news for a lot of different reasons. So apparently these two guys are going to be live on-air talents, but I'm not really interested in that. What I'm interested in is what they do behind the scenes. Now, for those that don't know, for those that's been living under a rock for a few decades, Eric Bischoff was overseeing WCW during its most, I don't want to say profitable, but during its biggest years that most everybody remembers it from. So from like 98 to early millennium, somewhere in there. And Paul Heyman, the creator and head guru of ECW, who oversaw that until its bitter demise after it was, I think, booted off Spike TV. And then Vince McMahon purchased it. And also Vince McMahon purchased WCW, but we don't need to get into all that. Why I think all this is interesting is I feel like it's a sign of desperation. There's been a lot of things, example like John Moxley, Ryback, Chris Jericho. A whole slew of wrestlers have been coming out here recently slamming the WWE for their approach to making professional wrestling, their approach to television, how they micromanage the talent, how they don't give anyone room to grow. And it all stems from this man right here, Vince McMahon. According to all reports, Vince McMahon micromanages things to the point that he chokes them to death. He changes things last minute. The creative team is in complete disarray. People that stand up to Vince McMahon tend to not last very long, and he's surrounded by yes men because that's what he chose. That's what he chooses. Triple H, his son-in-law, who oversees NXT. A lot of people see him as the future savior of the company, but we'll see. Now let's get into some numbers, I think, to add to this. Now this comes from Wrestler Observer Figure 4 Online from Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Now I wanted to pull this up to give credence to my argument of why things are going down the way that they're going down. The headline reads, WWE Raw ratings up slightly For post Stomping Grounds episode, for those who don't know, Stomping Grounds was a recent WWE pay-per-view as of June 25th, 2019. Raw last night did a 2.28 million viewers, a number that has been considered bad coming off a pay-per-view. It was up 1.8% from last week's number. Positive news is it is the first to third hour drop was 11%, which is good based on recent history. The two big takeaways are that there are not a lot of interest in Stomping Grounds, as all metrics have shown, nor was there a curiosity coming out of it in a big way, based on the first hour number that was very low coming off a pay-per-view. Now let's get to these numbers, which I think is really interesting. Raw was 7th for the night on cable. It was down 15% from the same week last year. So this latest episode of Raw, down 15% from the same week of last year, of 2018. So this episode of Raw, the 3 hours were at 8 p.m., 2.39 million viewers, and at 9 p.m., they dropped down to 2.32 million viewers, and at 10 p.m. they dropped down to 2.13 million viewers. So, wrapping this up, putting it in a nice package, put a bow on it, and you can untie it and unravel it if you choose. But basically, the problem is this. Vince McMahon knows something is wrong, even if he's unwilling to admit that he's probably more than likely part of the problem. There comes a time in every company's history where, you bring it to a certain point of success, but then at some point you have to let go of the reins and turn it over to other people to shepherd it. Now, the other thing I want to point out is Vince McMahon has resurrected the XFL. You remember that? You remember that football league that he started and he lost a lot of money on? Well, he's brought it back, and he's just he seems to be taking his time on developing the league and getting the coaches and the teams and the players and that sort of thing. Well, that's going to take a lot of Vince McMahon's time, and I believe he can pull it off. I think the XFL can be a success, but the problem is doing both that and his multimedia gazillion-dollar company, the WWE, doing two of those things at the same time. I don't think that's a wise decision because the product will suffer. Also, his micromanaging is another issue. With wrestlers like Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, Ryback. I mean, there's a whole slew of them over recent months and through the last couple of years that have come out against Vince McMahon's methods, his current methods of doing things, and some of the people that he's got surrounding him. So I feel like this is an act of desperation. I'm kind of curious as to what authority that Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman will actually have on each show. I imagine at the end of the day, since Vince McMahon will still have final say, is he going to change a lot of the ideas and the concepts that they have at the last minute, or will he show them a slither of respect and let them kind of do their own thing? I don't know. I'd like to know what your thoughts are below. Please leave me a comment if you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts, or where you think this is going to go, if you think this is a good idea, a bad idea, if it even makes a difference. In my opinion, honestly, it does not. I don't think it will make a difference because the real changes have to start with Vince McMahon himself. Anyway, with that said, that's pretty much it for this episode. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. As always, this is C.B. Smallwood reporting for Mental Junk Food, and I will see you in the next video.